Ancient time. A land of philosophy, art, and total anarchy. You think modern crime is shocking? Please! Our ancestors practically invented the concept of what the F just happened. They were out here committing murders, rigging games, executing pigs, and poisoning emperors. All before the printing press was even a thing. Today, we're diving into some of the most twisted, brutal, and downright ridiculous ancient crimes that made people's jaws drop. Sometimes literally. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll be thanking modern law enforcement and your toothbrush. Let's kick things off in ancient Egypt, where power struggles were basically the national pastime. Meet Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt and professional schemer. Now, Cleopatra had a sister, Arsinoe IV, who got a tiny bit ambitious and tried to steal her throne. You know, normal sibling rivalry. Except in this family, it usually ended with somebody floating face down in the Nile. Cleopatra wasn't about to let that slide. So when she cozied up to Julius Caesar, ancient power couple alert, she asked him for a little favor. Could he, take care of her sister? And by take care, I mean drag her out of a temple sanctuary and execute her on the steps. In front of everyone. During a religious ceremony. Now, in ancient times, sanctuary in a temple was supposed to be, sacred, untouchable. Even the most hardened soldiers were like, maybe don't mess with the gods. Cleopatra and Caesar looked at that rule and said, cute. Anyway, off with her head. The public was horrified. The Romans were like, damn, Cleopatra. The priests? Probably traumatized for life. Ancient Yelp reviews must have been wild.
1 star. Got beheaded during worship. Would not recommend.
The crime? Public execution of a religious refugee. Shock level? 9 out of 10. The only reason it's not a 10 is because we're just getting started. Now, let's head to medieval France, where justice was served, sometimes with a side of bacon. In 1386, a pig in Falaise, France committed a crime that shocked the entire town. It mauled a baby to death. Yeah, I know, total buzzkill. But here's where it gets insane. The pig was arrested, tried in court, and sentenced to public execution, just like a human criminal. And this wasn't some casual trial. They went full legal circus, hired a lawyer for the pig, dressed it in little clothes to humanize it, and held a full-on courtroom drama. The executioner paid extra because apparently pigs are harder to kill than people. Ancient crime lesson. Don't let your pigs roam free. And maybe don't live in 14th century France. Crime? Pigicide. Shock level? 10 out of 10. The pig got a whole-ass trial. I can't even get a jury duty notice dismissed. Next up, ancient Greece, where the Olympics were sacred, pure, and full of bribes. In 388 BCE, boxer Eupolos of Thessaly decided he really wanted that gold medal. So he did what any respectable athlete would do, he bribed his opponents to throw their matches. The scandal blew up. Officials were so outraged, they fined him so heavily, they built 6 bronze statues of Zeus with the money. The statues stood for centuries as a giant middle finger to cheaters. Imagine if the NFL built a statue every time a player got caught juicing. Stadiums would be packed. Crime? Olympic-level bribery. Shock level? 8 out of 10. Nothing says scandal like cheating in front of the gods. You've heard Shakespeare's Macbeth. Murder, madness, and more blood than a Tarantino film. But the real story is just as juicy. In 1040, King Duncan I of Scotland wasn't exactly beloved. Enter Macbethod MacFinleish, or Macbeth for short. Macbeth, a nobleman with some serious ambition, killed Duncan in battle. Not in his sleep, as Shakespeare wrote, but on the battlefield. The crime wasn't illegal in the technical sense, because Scotland was basically Game of Thrones at the time, but it shocked the kingdom. Duncan was young, charismatic, and popular. Macbeth? Ambitious? and ruthless. He seized the throne and ruled for 17 years. Scotland was divided. Some hailed him as a just ruler, others whispered about the blood on his hands. Shakespeare just turned up the drama for entertainment value. Crime? Regicide. Shock level? 7 out of 10. They kind of expected this back then, but still. Now, let's take a detour to Rome. You think modern political scandals are bad? Please, the Romans were the blueprint. Case in point, the poisoning of Emperor Claudius in 54 CE. Claudius was no fool. Okay, maybe a little slow, but still a decent emperor. His wife, Agrippina the Younger, had other plans. She wanted her son Nero on the throne, and Claudius was inconveniently alive. Solution? Poison his favorite dish, mushrooms. Claudius loved mushrooms. Seriously, the man would have had a Michelin star mushroom tasting menu if he could. Agrippina allegedly worked with his physician to make sure the poison did the trick. Claudius ate the mushrooms, fell violently ill, and eventually died. The crime? Regicide by mushroom. Shock level? 10 out of 10. The man was killed by his lunch. Nero took the throne. Agrippina gloated, and Rome learned once again that the deadliest thing in politics was family. Speaking of Rome, let's talk about Vestal Virgins. These priestesses of Vesta were sworn to chastity, and if they broke that vow, it wasn't a slap on the wrist. In 114 BCE, a Vestal Virgin named Liciniia was accused of having an affair with her cousin. The punishment? Buried alive. They couldn't technically spill her blood, so they sealed her in a tiny underground chamber with a bit of food and left her there to starve. The public was horrified. Rome liked its brutal spectacles, sure. Gladiator fights, executions, you name it. But burying someone alive? That crossed the line for many. Crime? Religious offense. Shock level? 11 out of 10. You mess with the gods, you get ancient horror show. Now, let's rewind to the Persian Empire. In 522 BCE, King Cambyses II died under mysterious circumstances. His brother Bardia was supposed to take the throne, except Bardia was already dead. He'd been secretly murdered by one of Cambyses' men. Enter a dude named Gaumata, who looked a lot like Bardia and decided to impersonate him. He took the throne, ruled for months, and might have gotten away with it if not for some suspicious nobles. They staged a coup and killed the imposter. The crime? Identity theft and usurpation. Shock level? 9 out of 10. Ancient Persia basically got catfished. Finally, let's close with one of the darkest ancient crimes of all, the infamous Carthaginian child sacrifices. The ancient city of Carthage was a powerful rival to Rome, but it had a seriously disturbing religious practice: sacrificing children to the god Baal. Archaeologists have found burial grounds containing urns with the cremated remains of infants. Some argue it was a rare ritual. Others say it was widespread. Either way, when Rome found out, they were horrified and used it as propaganda during the Punic Wars. Crime? Mass ritual child sacrifice. Shock level? Off the charts. Even by ancient standards, this was brutal. It's one of those crimes that makes you grateful for modern society, and maybe gives you second thoughts about that trip to ancient Carthage you were planning. So, what have we learned today? First, ancient people were wild. They murdered siblings in temples, executed pigs, bribed Olympic officials, poisoned emperors, buried virgins alive, impersonated dead kings, and sacrificed children. And that's just scratching the surface. If you think modern headlines are shocking, remember, history is one long, blood-soaked soap opera. And third, maybe take a moment to appreciate that your biggest crime today is probably unpaid parking tickets. If you enjoyed this deep dive into humanity's darkest moments, hit that like button, subscribe for more ancient insanity, and drop a comment with the ancient crime you found most shocking. Until next time, stay curious, stay sarcastic, and for the love of Zeus, stay out of ancient courtrooms.